Please help me welcome back Director Mirjam von Arx. Plenty of questions for you. I think I could probably do the entire Q&A myself with my questions. I guess my first is just as a Swiss filmmaker, how did you come across this topic, and how did you choose to film in the U.S.?
Well, I was really originally interested in the subject of purity, and wasn't focused on any specific countries or religious group or anything. But I struggled for a long time to find a way how to tell a story, because it was important to me that it's not only the physical aspect that's part of it, but also the spiritual and the political aspect. And so I sort of by chance came across this family, because they were part in a short documentary which was aired on British television. And it occurred to me that they're the perfect protagonists, because I could just sort of delve into their lives and have all those aspects present.
I saw Finland mentioned at the end of the film. Is there anything comparable in Switzerland that you're familiar with?
They're actually, this purity movement is a lot bigger than I originally thought. But they're not, I mean, in Switzerland, I don't think there's ever going to be a ball, because we're just not those, people that have like big ceremonies and celebrate the same way. I think that's very American. This elaborate, and the symbolism. I think the Wilsons are like, to me, I mean, they hold the world record in creating ceremonies. I mean, everything. But as a filmmaker, I was extremely grateful, because usually you just have people talking to you about, how is it when I become a woman, and what does that mean to me? And here they created a ceremony for everything, a ritual. And I think actually that is also very smart, because I think these rituals, I mean, I think a lot of churches know rituals, because it makes it a lot easier for children to understand what's going on and to also want to be part of it.
Yeah, I think of Catholicism as having a lot of ritual, but these people seem to be making it up as they go along. It seems to be a very new ritual that they're introducing just within a generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're doing well, I think what is really smart, and I had no idea that worked like that, is that they're not promoting or making a stand against sex. They're not saying like, sex is really bad and you shouldn't have sex. They're actually doing quite the opposite. They say sex is the greatest thing on earth if you have it with the right person, if you have it with your husband. And so they create this fairy tale. That's the reason why we call the film work Virgin Tales, because they really do create this sort of fairy tale setup for the not even only the girls, also the boys, to make them want to stay with the program, because the payoff is so big. So I thought that was actually extremely smart on their behalf.
And of course, they have no monopoly on that. I mean, the world over, you've got religions and cultures where the honor of the family rests on the behavior and the purity of the women in the family. Did you consider looking at other religions by comparison, or you just wanted to focus on the one family?
We originally started out, we wanted to focus on an American family, on a Swiss family, which probably would go completely the other way, and on a family in Iran. And I was working with an extremely brilliant producer and director in Iran, but then during the election there, he got thrown in prison, and it all got very difficult. So we abandoned the idea, because I think we would have just endangered the family, and I didn't want to do that. And so we for a brief moment we thought like maybe going back and forth between Switzerland and the United States. Then I just abandoned the idea as well, because it would have been so boring every time you come back to Switzerland, because it's like sort of the normal thing, So I thought, what, just forget that. We just stay with this American family and try to just sort of delve into their world and stay with them. And I think it has worked out, for me at least, because I think the longer the film goes on, the more you sort of feel of that, the claustrophobia. I mean, it was something we felt almost physically when we shot there. Like every evening we came out and it was like sort of like to breathe. And I think something similar happens when you watch the film. And if I would have jumped outside their world, I think I would have lost that.
You say about how you felt when you left, because one of the things that struck me about the film was you didn't appear to be at all critical of them, and you just present them and allow us to draw our own conclusions, which I really appreciate in a documentary. Was that a challenge in the editing to not appear as though you were criticizing or stating a position?
I really wanted to do an observational film, so it was the concept from the very beginning to not judge, to just observe. And then, of course, to whenever those cracks in those, in this supposedly perfect facade appears to obviously show those cracks. So to me, in a way, I see quite well where I'm standing, but we try to just make it possible for people from all sorts of background, with all sorts of different backgrounds and from various religions to see the film and actually have a discussion and be open. I mean, it's been quite interesting. I've been at screenings where there were some people who were crying, others were cursing, and I mean, there are some scenes where they're like in the discussion afterwards they talked about that both sides found that scene like really, really good, but because of completely different reasons. One found it really good because it was so appalling and it showed so much how bad it is, and the other because he thought it was so beautiful. So it's I think then there is a good starting point for a discussion, because if you come in a film and after 5 minutes you think like, now I know how they tick, and the filmmaker sort of makes has like this narration that makes fun of them, which would be extremely easy, of course, for them to do. But it would be way too easy, It would be way too easy. And after 5 minutes, I think you'd be bored, because why would you take them seriously if I don't?
I think that the mark of a great documentary is that you can then show it to the subjects and they're not offended because they see it as, as they're being presented, and that their take on it is different. Have the Wilsons seen this film, and what's been their take on it?
It's actually quite funny. They have seen the film and they were not offended. I think they're now offended as they read the reviews. So they have our relationship definitely has cooled off. But one thing they always had a big problem with was these news clips we edited in, because it was important to me to show that this is not one family, it's a whole big movement, it's a political movement, it's a very strong movement, and it's growing. And it will certainly try to have a say, coming November 6th when the new president is elected. Or hopefully the old re-elected. I think to them those news clips were too much reality. They don't see that they have anything to do with them.
Much reality. Let's take questions from the audience. I'm sure you have plenty of questions for Mirjam. Yes, go ahead.
I don't even know where to start. I was so moved by the movie, and I was shocked that I was so moved, because there was a real beauty to these girls and their relationships with their father that I've never seen. That was beautiful to watch. Of course, it was disturbing as well. I was really curious about Jordan, and because there is a sense of sadness in her eyes, and I just wondered if you can tell us a little bit more about that. And I actually did think your bias was maybe not crystal clear, but definitely there was a hint of it there. And
the question among the commentary was about Jordan, and if there's more that Mirjam can tell us about Jordan, that she seemed rather sad.
To me, Jordan was really the most interesting person in this family, because she's at this point where she so desperately wants to get married and is sort of confined to wait, because they believe that God has chosen a perfect mate by the time they are born. Of course, if you go out look for your mate, that would mean that you don't trust God to bring a perfect mate. So you just basically sit at home and wait. then she has this older sister who's constantly being paraded in front of other people to tell her big love story, and she has to sit next to her and nod and be really happy for her, which she is, but she just wants her own fairy tale waiting. And so I thought she was a really good figure to sort of also show the pressure, you know, because of course when you believe that, you know, there's a big payoff, if it doesn't seem to appear, then you have to sort of, you know, ask yourself if it was worth it, you know, to really stay with the program. But at the same token, she has to, you know, for the younger siblings to repeat that mantra as well. So she I think is a really good, interesting character, very complex, and I had decided to give her a camera at the very beginning and ask her to do a video diary. And she's actually recorded a lot more than I thought she would. And she was, I think, a lot more open than I expected her to be. And really also, you know, talk about, I mean, there are some quite strong phrases she uses, you know, my parents are holding my feet to the fire, things like that, which I was really surprised to hear, because she wouldn't say that in interviews like that, you know, but somehow she felt comfortable with the camera. And the update, yes, of course, yes, she's married. She got married in April, and she married someone from the church, and is really happy.
Marriage came true for Jordan. Yeah.
What was that ceremony that right at the beginning of the film at Christmas, and then there was another one before the ball where like the 7 children parade in front of the father?
The question is about the hugging ceremony. I just call it that. I mean,
just one other question.
Follow-up question about the hugging ceremony was about the military and the connection between the Evangelical Christians and the American military.
First hugging ceremony. They call it the blessing. They do the blessing every weekend, every Sunday. It's a ritual, and if the children are not there, it's going to be done by Skype. That's the technology. It's because they do believe that the father is, you know, sort of the substitute of God in the family, and so they kneel down. But the children then also bless the father, so it goes on and on and on. But they really do kneel according to their age in front of the father, and he tells them pretty much always the same thing. You know, I mean that's why we included it again at the end of the film when they do it for in the conference, you know, sort of to promote their ways. The military question is actually that's something that I was not prepared for. I had no idea, because to me it's still like, okay, if you're Christian, you don't want to go out and kill people, but yes. The military background is extremely strong. I don't know if it's stronger than that. That's really difficult to answer. But they're extremely proud to be married to military men. Of course, Colorado also has a big military base. But that's something that's really important to them. And I mean, Chad was talking about that he you know, he sees his role as like bringing order into chaos, and that also, you know, that's how he explains his role in the military. And I gather that they have like big groups there and of Christian people, and they not even keep to themselves, but also try to involve others with prayers, and that it's really quite an active movement.
It was more of a comment than a question about the father-daughter ceremonies and the balls. And I came into the film expecting to you know, judge them more harshly than I did, and I found myself envying parts of their families that I thought, wow, I've never heard things like that from my family members. We just don't speak at all. It's probably for the best. So I found myself thinking, wow, it'd be nice to come from a family like that, as bizarre as much as it was.
Yeah, I think that's really the strength of the Wilsons as protagonists, that some things you just, you know, as you commented as well, some things they do really well, and we have to think about, you know, is everything so great the way we do it? I think it's a really tight-knit family, and I honestly think they really do love each other, very much so. They're very tight. I mean, it gets to the point where, yeah, the family almost, breaks down whenever someone gets married and moves out. Kaylin, the smallest one, she usually walks behind the bride sobbing like crazy because she knows that means that now her biggest sister is moving out again. But yeah, I think that's something I heard a lot, from people who started crying during the screening, and I knew they were politically, definitely not on that side, but they just said I just wish my father would have told me once that he loves me. Yeah, it's pretty simple. So maybe we can take some lessons from them in certain regards.
The question is if the film's been screened in Colorado Springs and what the reaction is from the evangelical and non-evangelical community.
We are invited to show the film at the Denver Film Festival, Stars Denver Film Festival, which I'm really excited about. Sadly, the family has now declined to join me up on stage. Originally, they wanted to do that, but I think just after reading some reviews, they opted out, which is a pity because I think it would be really interesting. But I have to say I'm really looking forward to go to Denver and just see what's happening. Yeah. I'm quite curious as well. Yeah, it was. I mean, I got the question at various places. Do they ever fight, or it's do they always behave like that? And I actually, of course, they do fight, although they've never actually fought when we were there. But I think they really do treat each other the way we see, with this constant repetition of telling each other how much they love and value each other, and when you think about it, it makes sense because that's their whole world. They get school at home. Their siblings are their best friends. Their all the other children they sort of have contact with are just part of the church. So that's all they know. If that is your whole world, it's going to be really tough if you have a fallout with your siblings because there's no one else to talk to. So I think, and also by reassuring each other constantly that they're doing the right thing, I think they do make it easier, to stick with the program. It went so far that really, I have to say they don't know anything about me, I went there, in the beginning I thought this is brilliant because I want to be sort of a fly on the wall anyway. So that makes it a lot easier. They're not asking questions. Then there was a time when I was quite upset because I thought that was a bit of an ego thing, It's I constantly come to you, ask how you are, what you're doing, you just don't give a toss about me. And then I started realizing it's exactly the same reason, By not knowing if I'm married or gay or have children or whatever, they don't have to think about that, I think it was hard enough for them to see us as a completely old female crew walk into their house, which was a decision I had taken. I wanted to work with all women. It was a brilliant decision because I had the best crew ever. They were brilliant. But I originally wanted to do that because I thought it gives us a lot more freedom. We can go to the bedrooms and everything. But what was a really good side effect was that we walked in there, and one of the daughters looked at us and said I didn't know that a woman could be a camera woman. Yeah, I've never shot more footage of women doing hair. Quite amazing. I always tried to convince them to do me a proof, but that didn't work. It's amazing. The looks is really important to them, and of course they, when they talk about it, it's also because God has given them, their looks, and so it's a way for them to glorify Him, if they stay pretty. So, you can sort of argue anything, I guess, and find everything in the Bible if you really look for it. But looks is really important to them, yeah. Which was, to me also, as a filmmaker, again, that was great in a sense that it's not like you look at them and you think and that sounds really harsh, but of course you hear that, you wouldn't have found anyone, you wouldn't have found a husband anyway. I think they're really good looking and really sexy, and if you look at them, no one will think they don't they just don't find anyone. So I think that was good.
Question about the ad about the watchman on the wall.
It's shortened. The end is missing, and so we just edited the logo on it, earlier. But it's it's entirely their clip.
I'm just curious if I know that you're not, I guess, in contact with the family now, but do you have plans to maybe just kind of make yourself available down the road, maybe a 10-year kind of follow-up kind of thing?
I have to say, I got on well with the family, and we talked and emailed. My contact mainly is through Randy and Jordan. And it was only now, the last couple of months when this, request came from Denver that they sort of turned cold. So we will see. We'll see what's happening. I think it also depends what's happening in their lives and if they're, if they would be willing to let me in their lives again.
Well, thank you, Mirjam, for joining us all the way from